What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are all doing well. So in today's video, as you guys can see right here, I've constructed a nice presentation for you guys going over the main psychological reasons as to why you are failing in your trading. I decided to make this video because me personally, I know that I have struggled through with these main things that I'm going to be talking about later in this video for a very long time. And it is very important to realize exactly where you're going wrong in your trading emotionally, psychologically, so you can know exactly what you need to fix. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. And by the way, if you guys aren't already in the free Discord, go ahead and join it. I'll leave it in the description below. I'll also leave this template in the Discord as well if you guys ever want to go back and look at it. So if this is useful for you guys. So yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and break down this entire board that we have constructed right here. All right. First thing that I want to talk about is every trade is executed inside a human nervous system. But what does this actually mean? When I say this, I mean that every trade, when it is executed on the charts, it is executed in your body first, right? So it is filtered through every trade that you take. It is filtered through fear, excitement, stress, impatience, confidence, and doubt, and even more things, right? These are physical signals that are all going through your body that then translate to you pressing the button on the charts, either pressing buy or pressing sell, right? Your body is reacting first before your logic finishes speaking, right? And now, why does this actually matter in trading? Because if we have two traders lined up, one over here, one over here, they take the same entry, they have the same stop loss, they have the same target, but let's say you had a wall in between them, right? Split straight down the middle. One's on the left side, one's on the right side. They can't see what the other person is doing. There will be one trader whose nervous system is regulated, and there will be another trader, let's say the left trader, their nervous system is regulated. The right trader, their nervous system isn't regulated, right? It's overstimulated because they do it to themselves. Now, what will you end up seeing? What is the result of this? Okay, the first trader on the left is holding their trade to take profit, okay? Or even if it's a loss, they're holding their trade to stop loss, right? And then for the person on the right, they're either cutting their winners early, or if they see their trade is going to stop loss, they end up removing it, right? Or the same setup could appear, one person executes and the other person doesn't, right? This is because the person on the right is overstimulated due to their own actions, right? Many people are in a loop that they don't even realize that they're in, right? Where, for example, price is just moving very fast, and your nervous system fires up, and then you think that there's either a threat since it's going closer and closer to your stop loss, or there's opportunity presented because it's moving very fast, and you think, if you enter at a random time, price is just going to continue to rip, right? But tell me, how many of you guys, and how many times has this happened where you try to enter, right, thinking price is just going to continue up, it's just going to skyrocket up, or even down if you're trying to short? How many times have you guys gone stopped out or just blown accounts because of those reasons? Probably a lot, right? Same thing has happened to me as well. The thing is with us is that we will always try to justify reasons as to why a trade is valid, or we'll try to justify some sort of reason as for if we take a loss, why it was a valid loss, or the specific reasons as to why we lose. But we stray away less and less from the actual probabilistic reasons as to why a trade won or lost, right? Which is what we need to be focusing on. Because at the end of the day, we can lose a trade and our analysis could be right, everything could be right. We could be basing an A+ setup and it could still lose. But the problem is we cannot handle it, right? Because again, we do it to ourselves. So it is very important to regulate our nervous system first, to be able to trade, in a calm environment, to be able to be in a place or environment in general where we are calm, collected, and we aren't able to think irrationally, right? Another thing is market data is neutral, but emotions are not, right? Quite literally what I have talked about in the last 4 minutes, right? Emotions will always be sporadic. Some days we might be feeling good, some days we might be feeling bad, but at the end of the day, if you're not able to regulate your emotions, you cannot be successful in a field like this, where it is probably the hardest way to make easy money, right? Because again, if you can master your emotions, you're able to master your craft. Most of the times, it's not a strategy problem, it is just a you problem. Now, I want to go down and break down the brain, right? What our brain thinks when it comes to trading. Now, specifically focusing on the two systems in our brain. The first side is the emotional brain, okay? When we are tapped into our emotions or when we are feeling emotions, obviously we tend to act, sporadically. We tend to act irrationally. When we are emotional, we don't think straight, right? We are thinking fast. We are thinking very reactive based off of, what the markets are doing, the volatility that's presented. We don't think logically, right? We always want to seek comfort. And every time that we take a loss or do something stupid, we want to seek comfort in the sense of us taking a trade that will allow us to go back to break even or allow us to be green on the day. We always want to avoid pain, right? And all of these things is just a form of us chasing dopamine, right? Which is exactly what we need to avoid. Every time that we're under stress, our emotional brain is triggered, right? Now, if we compare this to the logical side, whenever we're thinking logically, we're always thinking slow, right? We're always thinking on a more analytical basis. We're taking our time, we're thinking in terms of probabilities, we're calm, and we're more process based. Imagine if you could do this day after day after day after day. Imagine in a year if you were able to follow your rules, if you're able to follow your system, not do anything stupid, not crash out. Imagine where you would be from the start of the year to the end of the year. Imagine how much progress you would make. The most important thing that you guys need to realize when it comes to the brain in trading or utilizing the logical side of your brain in trading is every time you're about to do something stupid, every single time you're about to crash out, every single time that you think that a trade looks good when in reality it isn't because it doesn't follow your system, it doesn't follow your model. What if you just took an extra 5 seconds? What if you just took an extra 10 seconds to switch from you using your emotional side of your brain to you using the logical side of your brain, right? Is this really the right position that I want to enter, right? Is this the decision that I want to make that could potentially drastically change the fate of the accounts that I'm trading on right now? The answer is it is never worth it. It is never worth that extra little bit of profit on that day. It is never worth potentially changing a red day to a break even to a green day when the downside is much worse because you understand that the probabilities of you executing that trade in that moment is quite literally, or you winning while you're executing that trade in the moment is quite literally almost zero. Because again, you don't have data backed behind it, which is why I preach journaling very, very heavily, right? Because then you're able to absolutely dissect exactly where you're going wrong. That's exactly how I created this presentation as well, with all of these things presented, because I was able to journal consistently and look back at exactly where I went wrong, not only technically, right, technical analysis wise, but also psychologically as well. Because I took the time out of my day to journal my trades and reflect on it on a daily basis, which is exactly what you guys should do as well. Now, if we go and talk about the fear, okay, there are 3 types of fears that we face in our trading, all right? Like I said earlier, we fear losing, right? Obviously, just basic human psychology, we don't like to lose, okay? We don't like to be wrong, and just overall, we want to keep winning. But just like anything in life, right, have you ever faced something where you're just always, doing the right thing and you've never faced setbacks in your life? No. You have quite literally. I can promise you there aren't a lot of things in your life where, you've done something new and you haven't faced setbacks. It's the same thing with trading as well. There is absolutely no reason as to why you should think that your trading is going to be smooth 100% of the time. Now, when it comes to finances, when it comes to things that deal with money, there are more stakes on the line, right? Because money, finances, all of these things are able to set you up for a better life, right? There is a lot of control when it comes to money, just in general, not even talking about trading, right? Trading is just one of those paths to where you can, make, again, like I said earlier, you can make easy money, but it is the hardest way to make easy money. Now, my question to you guys is, why are you guys making it exponentially harder by, again, doing the things that I was talking about, right? You are trying to avoid pain. You're trying to, do things that you're not supposed to do. You are tapped into the emotional side of your brain, which makes it, again, exponentially harder to see success in this field when trading already is hard enough, right? So my question to you guys is, again, once again, why are you putting yourself in a position where you are causing yourself to be vulnerable, right? You are causing yourself to be vulnerable, and you are susceptible to blowing your accounts just because you cannot control yourself. You cannot control your emotions. Now, if we go down and break down the overall resulting behavior of these three things, which again, I know a lot of you guys have dealt with this before and are dealing with this right now. You guys ask yourself, you just don't want to face another red trade. What happens if this loses? And you just want to be green at the end of the day. What happens because of this? You either get late entries, you skip trades entirely, and then you see valid setups. But again, with all of these past experiences, you don't take it, you hesitate on these valid setups because once again, you are not confident in yourself, right? You focus too much on individual trades, which as a result cause you to do these things. Number two, fear of being wrong, right? Fear of making mistakes. Now, I can't even tell you how actually stupid this is. Looking back at it, right, and not even just talking about trading, but anything else in life. How are you going to learn if you're not making mistakes? It's the same exact thing in your trading. How are you going to learn if you don't execute, if you don't make mistakes? Now, there is a difference between making mistakes repeatedly over and over and over and over again and not learning from it, or you make mistakes, you journal it, you look back at it, and you realize, okay, this is exactly where I'm going wrong. Let me do less of this. Okay, you journal your trades, you journal your wins. Okay, this is exactly what I'm doing right. Let me do more of this. Again, if you just thought about it on a more logical side, right? If even not looking at the live markets, right? Even when you're journaling, if you look at it and if you think from a more logical perspective, if you're journaling and reflecting on your trades in a slow manner, in an analytical manner, in a probabilistic manner, if you're calm and you're process-based, you will be able to retain information that you're gathering on a day-to-day basis, and you're also going to be able to not make the same mistakes that you have been repetitively making, right? Now, the resulting behavior of you not allowing yourself to make mistakes is overconfirmation, analysis paralysis, and you just miss moves in general. A lot of people don't talk about how bad it is to wait for more and more confirmation. I think that is one specific thing that a lot of people don't talk about. Because again, on days where the market can be absolutely pristine, prices trending in one direction, you have a nice retrace, confirmation, everything, and you don't take that initial confirmation. And then you wait more and more and more and more until price, again, skyrockets, and we're closer and closer to your drawn liquidity. And then you execute right before we're about to take our drawn liquidity. You are actually, you may be tricking your brain into thinking that that trade is valid, but majority of the time you end up losing. Now, why is that? Because what you don't realize is that you waiting and waiting and waiting, and you missing the first presented most probable setup that you thought was good that ended up playing out, you missing that trade causes you to tap into your emotional brain, right? You are now just thinking more reactive based off of what price is doing. You're thinking fast and you don't really care about anything else, right? So now, again, like I was talking about earlier, imagine if you thought about trading and just in the markets on a day-to-day basis. If you were slow, if you thought about it, if you were very slow when you were talking, when you were thinking about your analysis, right? If you were calm and if you focused more on the process rather than just squeezing a little bit of profit in a day, imagine how far you could come in a year, right? Imagine how far you could go in a year. Now, talking about the third thing, right? Fear of giving back profits, okay? Fear of, potentially being up on the day and losing it, all right? There is a very, very simple fix for this. I don't even really need to talk about this, okay? Once you're up on a day, lock yourself out of the account. There are multiple resources out there. There are prop firms out there that offer daily loss limits, trailing daily loss limits as well if you're up on a day, to where you're able to just be liquidated and locked out of your account and you can't trade for the rest of the trading day if you enable those settings, right? As humans, we are not perfect, but we have resources that are available in this day and age, and we should be thankful that we have these resources, and we should not be neglecting implementing them into our trading, such as daily loss limits, such as trade limits. All of these things are there to help us regulate our emotions and keep us in check. And overall, keep our accounts active and alive for the next day, right? Which is the main goal. Fight to trade for another day. Now, the resulting behavior, just based off of you taking multiple trades in a day, very simple, right? You cut winners early, and then you just don't really maximize your RR, your risk to reward, right? Now, this isn't really that big of a deal, but because again, there are just resources that are there in order to make sure you don't do this, all right? Now, let's go ahead and talk about greed, okay? There are three types of greed that we all face: outcome, time, and validation, okay? Talking about outcome specifically, the behavior that we face from this is oversizing and ignoring stops. Now, how do we fix this? Okay, what is the proper way to fix outcome greed? Okay, very, very simple. Again, there are resources out there that allow you to restrict yourself to only placing a certain amount of contracts. Now, it all ties back, even if you don't have these resources available. Let's say there were not these resources available or these tools available to stop you from oversizing or ignoring your stops. What can you do to make sure that you do not do these things on a repeated basis, right? Learning from your mistakes, okay? This ties back directly to number 2, fear of being wrong, okay? And also fear of losing, all right? But you may be asking, how does oversizing and how does ignoring your stop loss have to do with the fear of being wrong and the fear of loss? Well, again, if you are afraid to make mistakes, right? Fear of being wrong. If you are afraid to make mistakes, you will never learn from them. If you don't execute, again, if you do not go through situations where exactly what I was talking about, right? Where you oversize, where you ignore your stops, when you blow your accounts, when you do something stupid, if you do not go through these situations, you will not be able to become a successful trader. It is that simple. It is as simple as that, right? Like I said, there is a difference between making mistakes, and there is a difference between making mistakes and not learning from these mistakes. The mistake that you are making in this case is not taking the time to learn from your mistakes and never repeating that same mistake again. That's what you should be focusing on. So the best way to deal with outcome greed is actually by doing these things, all right? It may sound counterintuitive, but if you do these things on a repeated basis and you're telling me you won't be able to learn from these things, then that means you should not be trading in the first place, right? For me personally, I got to the point where I was oversizing, right? I was over leveraging. I was full porting my, evals. I was letting my stops. I had a stop loss set. I ignored it completely, removed it, and I ended up blowing my accounts. But the difference is I learned from the mistake. Okay, I allowed myself to do these things so I could go ahead and reflect on it and say, okay, I am fed up with myself. I am not going to be doing these things anymore because I've seen firsthand experience that this quite literally has almost a 0% win rate, right? A 0.0% chance of me being successful in the long term. It is as simple as that, right? Going back to emotional versus logical brain thinking, right? You want to be thinking more logically in these cases, okay? You start from thinking emotionally, then you transition into thinking logically. Same thing applies, when you're talking about fear, greed, and now we're going to be talking about ego in a little bit, right? Time greed. A lot of you guys that I see really, really want to prove things to not only yourself, but to other people as well, right? A lot of you guys want to prove things to your parents, maybe to your relatives, your family members, whatever it may be. You want to prove that you were right all along. Why does that matter? Tell me what really changes. What really changes? They end up supporting you, and that's it. Nothing else really changes, right? Prove it to yourself. Prove it to yourself first that you can do this, all right? And if you try to rush things and if you try to rush the process, you're not going to build the skill as efficiently as you can. Matter of fact, you won't even build the skill at all because you're just going to be focused more on the outcome, right? Tying back to this. Over here, we're just talking about the outcome of a specific trade, but you're going to be tied to the outcome overall. You care more about what trading can get you, but you don't care more about the journey, what the journey actually provides for you, right? What does following your rules, following your system, and actually learning the skill change your life outside of trading in general, right? Because I promise you, the journey that you will be experiencing, the journey that you guys are going through, it is far more impactful on your life and your character in general than the fruits of your labor at the end of it. I promise you that, because you achieve all of these things that you've always wanted to achieve when you got into trading in the first place, and then realize, damn, it's kind of boring. I don't want to, this is not really giving me enjoyment. The journey is actually what allowed me to feel enjoyment, right? When I ended up, getting the thing that I wanted the most, right? So again, there is no rush. There is no rush when it comes to the things that you want to achieve in, your life, in trading. There is no rush in general when it comes to even scaling with prop firms, buying multiple accounts. You don't need to make this work now. You don't need results this month or next month. All you need is results in progress, right? And when I say progress, I mean following your rules, following your system, doing the things that you should be doing in order to make yourself a profitable trader. Again, tying it back once again to a logical brain, process-based thinking. Now, talking about validation greed, all right? Same thing, kind of almost, there is a little bit of a relevance in terms of time greed. There is a little bit of a relevance, right? Again, you don't need to prove that this works, okay? Again, you do not need to prove that it works. Prove it to yourself first, and then everything else will follow, all right? You don't need green days every day. Obviously, you've heard this saying 1,000 times, right? Losing trades are a part of a winning system. Losing trades will always be part of a winning system. So if you were able to be green every single day, then you would be rich, right? Everybody would be rich, right? If everybody could have a green day every single day. You need to face setbacks in order to see success. That goes with anything, not even just trading, anything in life. You need to face some sort of setbacks, all right? Now, the behavior for all of these things is you end up revenge trading, you end up trading emotionally after losses, same thing as revenge trading or over leveraging, all of these things. But again, if you just decided to think more logically, none of this would be occurring right now, right? Now, if we talk about ego, okay, this is probably the biggest thing, okay? Because you can get to a point where you're profitable in your trading, you're getting payouts, you're doing all of these things, but at the end of the day, you can go from profitable to being unprofitable just due to the sole reason of you not caring, okay? You become comfortable. That is where your ego comes into play, okay? This is the silent killer, all right? Now, I've listed some things, some common things that we all think about, talking about, okay, yeah, you know that the setup works, right? You know that your strategy is profitable. If you know that your strategy is profitable, if you know that you had the skill of trading, why do you care if you get stopped out? Why do you care if you're wrong? Again, if you back tested your setup, if you back tested your strategy over multiple years worth of data, and you understand the probabilities, and if you understand that you're going to take losses, why is that not translating in the live markets? That is what I want each and every one of you guys to ask yourself. You are not obeying the data that you've collected during backtesting when you are, again, thinking in with the emotional side of your brain, right? You are not thinking process based, which is the main reason, honestly, probably the main reason why you are losing in your trading, right? Why you're not seeing success, because you're not thinking process based. You're not thinking calm. You're not thinking analytically, right? It doesn't matter. Your emotions don't matter. Okay, the market does not care about your emotions. So why should you let your emotions control your trading? Okay, you need to toughen up. You need to realize that not only in trading, like I've said this probably a couple of times earlier, there will be setbacks. There will be hard times in every field that you face. Trading is no different. Trading is no different, right? Now, the behavior of you building an ego, it's quite simple. You hold losers, remove stops, break your rules, and you don't journal honestly, okay? That, I can say from my personal experience, that was probably the biggest struggle that I faced with my trading. I did not journal my trades honestly for almost an entire year. 2024, start to almost the finish of 2024. I'd only journal the trades that I thought were good to journal, that I thought that followed my system, my model, right? My strategy that I was trading. But every time I took a bad trade, I took a trade that didn't follow my system, didn't follow my rules. The days that I blew a bunch of accounts, I didn't journal it because why? I decided to avoid the pain, right? I decided to avoid the pain and I wanted to seek safety. Thinking more emotionally, which is exactly what we need to avoid. We want to face adversity. You are never going to get ahead in your life in general if you aren't willing to face adversity. And when you are in a profession, a $1 trillion profession like trading, when everything can go wrong, right? You can lose all of your money. You always need to be on your A game. Otherwise, you will never make it work. And that is something that I will always stand by. And that is something that you will always need to stand by as well. I promise you, you will never make it work if you don't realize that one thing. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the emotional trade sequence, okay? So we start off by taking a good setup. All right, everything is good. One thing that I like to say is that the problem isn't you winning more, right? The problem, you're not actually going to learn a lot from your winners because you can learn, you can take as many A plus setups as you can, all right? It is so easy to recognize A plus setups, the textbook setups. That is not the problem. The problem is everything else below, right? You take emotional entries, you see, where you over leverage, you size up, you do something stupid because you miss the good setup. What does this cause you to do? When you see some sort of small pullback, some sort of, candle that isn't forming in the right direction, right? You end up tweaking out. You do something stupid. This spikes your anxiety, you start micromanaging, and then you exit early, or you just completely get liquidated, right? Price goes without you, hit TP, and your whole day is ruined. Now, all of this right here can be solved if you just waited for the good setup, or if you ended up missing the good setup of the day and you didn't want to do any of these things. All you had to do was realize that you will get another good setup later on in your trading career. The market does not disappear the next day. It doesn't disappear. You will get the same setup eventually and you'll execute it. That is one of the most important things that has kept me in this game long term and allowed me to see success, because I realized if I have the skill, why am I allowing myself to self-sabotage? It doesn't logically make sense, right? Now, This is also another big thing, talking about identity and self-worth when it comes to trading. I've dealt with this for a very, very long time, for a very, very long time. And one thing that I can say right off the bat is if you allow trading to be a very big part of your day on a day-to-day basis, you will deal with these things. And I have dealt with these things as well. Now, the best way to combat it is just honestly by having hobbies, right? One thing that I did was every time, I take a trade, and I saw myself go down this pattern early on where I wouldn't be able to stop myself from doing stupid things in the market, right? Over leveraging, oversizing, or same thing, over leveraging, revenge trading, all of these things. I wasn't able to stop myself from doing these things. So again, what I did was face adversity. I realized, okay, is this going to make me profitable? Because again, I wasn't afraid to make mistakes because I did these things quite frequently. And then it just took one day for me to sit down and realize, holy crap, I have spent so much money on evaluations, I cannot go down this path. So I decided to be brutally honest with myself and strict with myself, okay? I need to set some sort of rules. I need to set some sort of boundaries. So what I did was, back when I was in college, back in 2024, what I did was at 11 a.m. every single day, I would make sure to go to the gym no matter what. If I was in a position or if I wasn't in a position, I wouldn't even look at the charts. Even if I was in a position at 11 a.m., I wouldn't manage my position. Okay, so break even, TP, stop loss, it didn't matter. It was either TP or stop loss. I didn't even go break even, right? I had to be so strict with myself to make sure that I built the good habits that were necessary to keep me in this game long term. And if you are never brutally honest with yourself, nothing will change, which is why the saying is there. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? You need to change crucial things in your life that are holding you back from being successful in your trading, right? Do not tie your trading with your self-worth. Do not make it the most important part of your day, right? Just because you have a green day, do not develop an ego and say, yeah, you know what, I can do this for the rest of my trading career. No, you will take a red day and you won't be prepared for it, and then you'll end up crashing out. You'll end up blowing your accounts. Is that really the life that you want to lead? Is that really the trading, journey that you want to go down? Is that the trading journey that you want to experience? You don't. So the simple question is, why do you do it to yourself? Why do you make trading more complicated than it needs to be, right? You know that you are cooked when losses feel completely personal. You think that, the market has come out to get you and it's just taking what you thought was yours. That money was never yours to begin with. Okay, you have to realize that. Okay, that was the money, that was the market's money. All right, you are just there. You are there to capture it when it is necessary, right? When it is presented to you. That is all you should be thinking about. Okay? And whenever you take a loss, whenever you take a loss, you blow an account, just think of it as tuition. Okay, you're paying tuition to the markets. That's just the best way to think about it. Because at the end of the day, again, if you have the skill, you will never lose the skill. The only thing you will lose is your mental, right? You can go completely insane and go 2 years, 3 years without seeing progress, and it's all because you didn't realize that you are a skilled trader and you know what you're doing, which causes you to do stupid things, to crash out, blow accounts, do all of these things. When again, you've built the skill, you know what you need to do, you are just not executing it, and you just do not know how to face adversity when it is presented. And then when it comes to the point where trading becomes emotionally exhausting, that's when most people end up quitting, right? So once you get to this point right here, overall, you're basically done for. So which is why I recommend overall to just have hobbies, right? Pick up hobbies which allow you to kind of forget about trading in general, what you did in the trading day, and completely be able to detach from the charts. Now, talking about the illusion of control, okay? One thing that I like to say is being able to focus on the controllables, okay? And that is really the only thing that you can do, not only in trading, but in life in general. What is the point of focusing on the uncontrollable aspects in trading and in life in general? It will do you no good, okay? So let's break down what are the uncontrollable and controllable aspects in trading specifically, all right? Individual trade outcome. You cannot control whether it is a win or a loss, all right? But what you can control is your discipline when it comes to execution, okay? You can control when you decide to execute, but you cannot control the outcome of that specific trade, okay? You cannot control news events, all right? Obviously, they're just going to be out there. They're going to release, but what you can control is you not executing when news events drop, right? You also cannot control random volatility. But again, what can you control? Your discipline when it comes to executing your trades, right? You can control the risk. You can control the amount of trades that you're taking, and you can ultimately control when you decide to press the button versus not. All right. Now, final things that I want to talk about. All right. Process will always be greater than the outcome. All right. You want to reprogram your brain into thinking along these lines, rewire your brain. One trade will never mean anything. All right. If one trade meant something, then we would all be rich. Okay. Let's say we took one trade, it was a win. If we relied on that specific trade's data, we would all be rich. Everybody would be rich. Okay. Even for the people that take losses. Okay. If they relied on that specific trade's data from them taking one singular loss, then they would be dead, right? They wouldn't even exist on this earth, right? Just due to the fact that literally one trade means nothing. You need multiple trades. You need tons and tons and tons of trades to look back on and realize, okay, I know my probabilities, I know my tendencies, I know what exactly I need to do and what exactly I don't need to do. It all comes down to that, right? The amount of trades matters. You need to collect a vast amount of trades to actually understand what your tendencies are in the markets. And at the end of the day, if you just think about losses as being data, right? They're just data points, emotions won't even play a factor. Right? And that's one big thing that I changed with my trading in terms of psychologically speaking. I viewed every single loss as a data point because, again, I was so focused and I was so locked in on journaling because I always wanted to improve, right? I just always wanted to mitigate the amount of losses, mitigate the amount of stupid things that I was doing in my trading. And it played out, right? Look where I am right now. All right. It's because I decided to absolutely lock in with journaling and understand that everything is based off of statistics and trading. Now, we want to talk about consistency, right? A lot of people try to rush things. They think that they can still be consistent when, they scale and buy a bunch of accounts and they do all of these things. But at the end of the day, you are not being consistent. You are putting yourself under the illusion that you're seeing consistency just because you go on a win streak. Just because you're going on a win streak, you're passing accounts, you're scaling up fast, doesn't mean you are seeing consistency. That can all crash in a matter of the next day, right? And then you'll realize, damn, this was just a fluke. And then you start getting into your head, and then you start looking at all of these other things that I was talking about, right? You start being fearful, you start being greedy, then you build an ego, which is the killer, the silent killer of a lot of traders. At the end of the day, good things come slow, right? Which is the saying that has been there for a while, right? Good things come slow. They do not come fast, they come slow, all right? You need to realize that before it is too late and you end up going down a path, a very dark path that you should not have went down in the first place. Now, you want to reframe your brain and reframe your thinking in general, which is what I was talking about earlier. Every loss, treat it as tuition. It's the same thing as, going to college, paying tuition, going to medical school, you're paying tuition, you're gathering information. Every loss is an opportunity for you to gather information. And what is the tuition you're paying? The money that you're losing, that you're giving to the market. Okay? You're gathering information every time you take a loss. That's the way I view it. And that is what exactly has allowed me to lock in with my journaling, right? Every time I take a loss, every time I take something stupid, the first thing that I do is go to my journal and see, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I improve? If there was anything to improve on. That's all I care about, process-based thinking. Now, another thing is taking a trade every single day, right? You don't need to execute every single day. There are opportunities that could potentially be presented every single day, but just because you miss a few opportunities doesn't mean that you are a failure. Doesn't mean that you need to do something different, okay? Discipline will always be key. It will always be key. If you can go an entire day, if you can go an entire hour and 30 minutes without executing, without pressing a button, that is a win in itself, right? You don't need to be green to say that you have won. That is a winning day. Break-even days are a win. Anything besides you breaking your rules, you breaking a system, right? Anything beside that will always be a win. Always. I actually challenge you guys to do this, okay? I challenge you guys to go an entire day, even if there is the most beautiful setup that is presented that you've never seen before in your life, and you're like, damn, I really want to take this. I need to take this. I know that it will play. It is a very high probability setup. I challenge you guys to not take that setup and just sit on your hands for an entire session. For an entire session. What if you did that? A lot of you guys may also be good traders, but the only thing that is just stopping you, that is preventing you from getting to the next level, is the fact that you guys cannot go a single day without taking a trade. You guys cannot go a single session without taking a trade. You guys look at multiple sessions and you guys think that you guys can find opportunity in every single session. Maybe you didn't see opportunity in New York AM session, and then you go into Asia session. And then what does that lead to? All of the things that I said above, right? You go into Asia session, you try to look for, a setup, you don't see a good setup, you see an emotional entry, and you get into an emotional entry, maybe because you thought a setup was good initially, you end up losing it, and then you re-enter. What does that end up leading to? You blowing your accounts. It always ends in one thing. Always ends in one thing in the long term, right? Think of it like a casino. The house will always win. Every time you do something stupid, right? The stupid thing, it will lose. It is as simple as that. You will not win. The house will win. The market will win. If you don't have an edge, the market is the house, okay? So if you stray away from your probabilities, if you stray away from your edge, the house will always win. It is as simple as that. Now, just to wrap everything up, okay? What is the real edge? The real edge is you. The real edge will always be you. You are your own edge. So I plead, I beg you guys to take yourself seriously. Because if you don't, you will never make it out in trading.